Okay, my name is Matt Horvath. I helped code this pig dice game project, and I'm going to start here at the startup functions where we're going to be loading in our audio files and we're going to be assigning them to their MATLAB properties. Then we're going to move on to the how to play button, which is going to hide all the main menu elements and display text on the rules of the game. And then the back to main menu put button is going to hide those rules and make all the main menu elements visible again. The play button is going to do much of the same. It's going to hide all the main menu elements, make some of the game graphics visible. It's going to make the end round button visible and the roll button visible, as well as initialize the score table with the rows player one and player two, and it's going to set all the values to 0. Moving on to the roll button pushed function, which is a little more complicated. It's going to start with playing a sound effect, the dice sound we have, and then this is going to keep track of whether or not we're in multiplayer mode. We are in this case. So we're going to keep track of the dice location where the animation is going to occur based on the player's turn. One is left, two is right. We are then extracting the ThingSpeak player turn from the third field, which is in charge of the player turn. And if that matches the local current player turn value, we are going to proceed on to the dice rolling. This loop here runs 1 through 6 and it hides all dice faces. And then for this animation loop, we're going to run it 10 times. This is going to clear all the faces of the dice. This is going to display a randomly generated dice face, display it for 0.05 seconds, and then hide it again so it makes it look like it's rolling really quick. And after that animation has run, we are going to then again clear all the dice faces one more time just in case. And now for scoring, we're going to use the final roll value, which is another randomly generated number. We're going to show that dice and then retrieve our score from the data table. This is an important rule. If the final roll is 1, it's going to play this sound and animation for losing. It's going to set your current round score to 0 and update the data table. It's going to turn off your buttons and change the player turn so you cannot cheat while they are going. Otherwise, it's going to add your current round score to your most recent dice roll, update the data table, and this wait for function is to make the players wait for each other to go before they have access to their buttons again. Otherwise, this is the single player function, which is going to be exactly the same. All the animation stuff, all the clearing the dice is going to be exactly the same as the multiplayer function. The only main difference is going to be down here in the final roll section where instead of disabling buttons, we are just changing the player turn because there are two players on one screen. So all you have to do is change the turns to change the values accordingly. And then we're going to finish up by, again, updating the current score, sending that to the data table. And yeah, that is it.
Hello everybody, this is Yi-Chen Liao, and I'll be picking up where Matt left off. So this function will be triggered if a player pressed the end round button. And if single mode is not equal to 1, means that we're playing multiplayer. Next, the program will read the current score table, and this retrieves all scores from the user interfaces. Then we determine how to update the scores based on which player is taking their turns. So if player 1 is playing, we calculate their temporary score as the combination of the their current round score and their total score. And if player 2 is playing, we do the same for them. Since this is a multiplayer game, the program updates the scores to ThingSpeak. And this function send player 1 and player 2 score to ThingSpeak. And field 1 and 2 store player 1 and 2's total scores. Next, we update the local score table. The player's total score is updated, and the total score will be reset to 0. After a delay, the program reads back the updated score from ThingSpeak. This ensures the local score is always synchronized with the global online score. Now the program checks if either player has won by reaching 10 points. If player 1 has 10 or more points, the win screen will show for player 1, and the same will happen to player 2. But if either player has won, the turn switches back to the other player. And for single player mode, it's basically the same as the multiplayer mode, except that it skips ThinkSpeak and directly updates the scores inside the program. And if the restart button is pushed, the function will reset the game and the win screen will be hidden and all player scores will be reset to 0. And we also restore the main menu by letting all the logos how to play button, and multiplayer button on. And also this game will start with player 1. This function will be triggered when the player wants to exit the game and go back to the main menu. So everything else resets back to the starting state and the main menu will appear.
Hi, my name is Yi-Chen, and I was responsible for making the graphics in this game, as well as multiplayer mode, which uses ThinkSpeak. So to start with, I'm gonna do a quick demo. You would click the multiplayer button first, and on one screen you would select player 1, and on the other one you would select player 2. So as you can see on player 2's side, all the buttons are disabled because they're waiting for player 1 to finish their turn. So I'm gonna start off by rolling on player 1's side. And as you can see, we got a 1. So that means the round score is 0. And this should update to the ThinkSpeak, but in this case, it did not because rolling a 0 means that the total score was not changed. Um, but to start with, I'm going to explain the multiplayer button. It's basically the same as the player button, just except that it initiates the single mode to false. And how we did it is we separated all the callbacks into single and multi-mode to be able to differentiate it. And on to player selection. It disables all buttons before selection, and choosing player 1 updates ThinkSpeak's turn and only enables the dice on the left. And choosing player 2 puts you in a wait loop and disables all your buttons until player 1 is done. And now we're going to go over to the roll button. And first, it detects if you're in multiplayer mode. And if you are and you're player number 1, then only the left dice will be rolled. And we had some trouble with switching players because current multiplayer's value changes when we run the switch player function. So to fix that, we made sure that our dice rolls only when multiplayer number is equal to current multiplayer. And otherwise, they're put into a wait loop. And I do believe that Matt has gone through all the logistics of the roll button. So I'm going to move on to the end round button. Moving on to end round button, it also first detects if you're in single player mode or multiplayer mode. And if you're in multiplayer mode, pressing the end button prompts ThinkSpeak to update the values of fields 1 and 2, which are the total scores of P1 and P2, player 1 and player 2, respectively. And this should update the data and send it to the other player right over here. And it would also check for winning condition, and if neither of the players meet this condition, then we would switch players. So I'm going to move over to the switch player function. And basically, let's say as player 1, it puts current multiplayer to 1, which allows player 1 to go. And in the meantime, it would update the ThinkSpeak value of whose turn it is to 2. And then it would put you into a wait loop for the other player. And how the wait loop works is it first reads whose turn it is from the ThinkSpeak field written by switch player earlier. And if this number is not equal to the corresponding player number, it would pause and read from ThinkSpeak until it is, which indicates that it is their turn. That concludes our ENG6 pick project, and thank you for watching.